All right, 2025 is just about in the books, and you know what that means? It's the perfect time to look back so we can get ahead. Here at Philosophy LLC, we've spent the year in the trenches with thousands of businesses, and we've been listening. We took every single question you asked us and crunched the numbers to find the top 10 HR issues of the year. So in this explainer, we're going to break it all down and get you ready to hit the ground running in 2026. Let's get into
So just take a second and think about it. What were the things that kept you up at night this year? The compliance headaches, the tricky employee situations? What really defined 2025 for your business? I'm willing to bet you're going to see a lot of your own challenges pop up on our list. And look, this isn't some guess or a bunch of predictions. This is the real deal. Our top 10 list is built from thousands and thousands of actual questions that our clients, businesses just like yours, asked us all year long. This is HR straight from the source. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the big picture. Then, we'll dive into the top questions, grouping them into 4 big themes. All about employee leave, then pay and breaks, then hiring and firing, and finally, benefits. And stick around because at the end, we'll wrap it all up with some concrete steps you can take for 2026. So, let's set the stage. What was the main story in the world of HR this past year? What did the data really tell us? Well, if there's one thing our data screamed, it's this. The maze of compliance is getting more and more complex every single year. It's just a fact. And we saw a huge wave of questions coming in, especially from our clients in California, who are trying to navigate this incredibly tangled web of city, state, and federal laws. All right, let's jump into our first big topic. And believe me, this one is a giant. It actually combines 2 of the top 3 questions we got all year. And it's all about one thing: employee leave. Honestly, there was no contest. This was the number one headache, the number one source of confusion for employers in 2025. Trying to manage employee time off, whether it was for a couple of sick days or a few months of family leave, was just packed with overlapping rules and tricky situations. And people weren't asking basic questions. For paid sick leave, our number one question of the year, it was all about the details. Things like, okay, when exactly am I allowed to ask for a doctor's note? Or can I offer to pay out an employee's unused sick time? Then when it came to longer leaves, it was all about that famous alphabet soup of laws: CFRA, FMLA, SDI, PFL, and just trying to figure out how in the world they all fit together. And this right here is a perfect example of why it's so confusing. You've got California's CFRA and the federal FMLA. They sound pretty much the same, right? But the devil is in the details. CFRA, for instance, has a much broader definition of who counts as a family member. Little differences like that can have huge consequences, and that's what was tripping up so many businesses this year. All right, moving on to our next big category. Let's talk about the absolute core of any job: making sure people get paid and get paid correctly. You know, this is one of those areas where a simple mistake isn't just a mistake. It can turn into a really expensive lawsuit or a wage claim. And you could tell from the questions we were getting that employers are really feeling that pressure and are trying their best to get it right. Man, this section is just jam-packed. It covers 4 of our top 10 topics. We got nonstop questions about who qualifies as an exempt employee, a ton of confusion around tip pooling, and of course the classics: meal breaks and timekeeping. You know, where one little mistake in recording a break can mean an hour of penalty pay per employee per day. It just goes to show you, every single step of the payroll process is a potential trap. Let's zoom in on tip pooling for a second. That was our number 5 question. It sounds simple enough, right? But the rules are so strict. By far, the most common question we got was some version of, hey, can my servers share their tips with the cooks and dishwashers in the back? Well, the answer totally depends on where you are, and if you get it wrong, your whole system could be invalid, and you could be on the hook for a lot of back pay. Next up, let's look at the bookends of the employee journey: how it all begins and how it ends. You know, having a smooth start and a clean exit isn't just about being organized. It is one of the most important things you can do to protect your business from legal trouble down the road. And the questions we saw prove that employers are really starting to focus on these 2 critical moments. So get this, our second most asked question of the entire year was about termination. And you could feel the stress in the questions. What is the exact checklist of documents I absolutely have to provide? And the big one: when and how do I have to give them their final paycheck? Because being just 1 day late can cost you. On the flip side, we saw a huge uptick in clients asking us to look over their offer letters before sending them out, which is so smart. They want to make sure they're compliant and not accidentally promising something they can't deliver. Okay, let's shift gears to our final theme: This is where we see federal laws clashing with this growing patchwork of rules coming from individual states. If your business operates in more than one state, you felt this one in a big way during 2025. It's not enough anymore to just worry about federal laws like the ACA. Now you've got to keep track of a growing list of state-specific mandates, especially when it comes to things like retirement savings plans. So on the federal side, you have the good old Affordable Care Act, the ACA, still causing confusion around who's eligible and how to avoid penalties. But then you have these state programs, like CalSavers in California, popping up at number 9 on our list. Employers were calling us asking, what in the world is this? Do I have to pay for it? And how do I get out of it if I already have a 401k? And here's the answer that cleared things up for so many people. CalSavers is California's way of making sure pretty much every worker has a way to save for retirement. But here's the key for business owners. Your job is to facilitate it. Basically, get your employees signed up, but you are not required to contribute a single dollar. It's an administrative job, not a financial one, and knowing that was a huge relief for many.
Okay, so we've walked through the biggest headaches of 2025. Now for the most important part. What do we do with all this information? How do we use it to make 2026 a better, smoother year?
The message from all this data is crystal clear. This stuff isn't getting any simpler. The days of waiting for a problem to happen and then reacting are over. That's just not a good strategy anymore. The only way to win is to get out ahead of it, to be proactive. So what does that actually look like? Well, here's your checklist for the start of 2026. Number 1, review all of your leave policies. Are your procedures for sick leave and FMLA totally buttoned up? Number 2, audit your pay practices. Are you 100% sure your exempt employees are classified correctly? Is your tip policy totally legal? And number 3, dust off that employee handbook and make sure every single policy reflects the latest laws we've just been talking about.
So as you think back on your own year, and after hearing about all these common challenges, the big question you have to ask yourself is this. Is your business truly ready for whatever 2026 is about to throw at you?